Well, joining me now in Louisville, Kentucky is Guthrie Fitzsimmons. He's the founder of the Resistance Praise, a progressive Christian organization critical of the president. And in Easley, South Carolina is Pastor Mark Burns. He's a member of Donald Trump's Evangelical Council and the CEO of the Christian Now television network. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us on the Newsmakers. So Guthrie, let me start with you. Tell me why you're not too keen on the president endorsing Bible literacy classes for public schools. As a man of faith, isn't this a good thing?
Right. Well, first, let me say how grateful I am to be on this program as a progressive Christian. Usually when we have these discussions about Trump and the religious right, it's a Christian conservative on one hand, and then you have some non-religious kind of person critical of them on the other, and the viewer at home is left wondering, wait, do all Christians believe what the religious right believes? And the answer is no. There are millions upon millions of progressive Christians in the United States who didn't vote for the president in the first place and have been active in the resistance since day one. And so our newsletter is empowering progressive Christians to really fight Trump. And this Bible literacy classes is just the latest news story in which the president is trying to, throw red meat at his white evangelical conservative base to kind of keep them in line amidst the horror of the Trump administration. And, I'm really upset about the Bible literacy classes as a Christian, because Christians are called to love their neighbors and not, hate other people who aren't Christian. And then as an American, because it makes a mockery of the separation of church and state.
Okay, let me bring in Pastor Mark Burns, a supporter of Donald Trump, clearly not from the white base of Christian voters, because you're black, right? Okay, so Pastor Burns.
Very much so.
So the president's watching Fox, he's watching Fox and Friends, and they talk about these bills that have been proposed in 6 states, and then he tweets numerous states introducing Bible literacy classes, giving students the option of studying the Bible, starting to make a turn back. Great. He goes, question mark over turn back. Great. What exactly is he making a turn back to, Pastor Mark Burns? To what?
This nation was founded on Judeo-Christian principles, and I'm very shocked, my progressive Christian brother, to not afford this. I mean, again, this nation has went so far to the left that we have even now child drag queen, and this is dangerous. There's so many millions upon millions upon millions of Christians and non-Christians who disagree in some of the left's principles that anything goes. We have to be able to bring it back into the fold of what has made this nation great. And one of those pillars and principles that has made this nation great is our faith.
Right.
And to be able to practice it in the public school system.
Right.
And I'm very proud the president's been bold enough to step up to
Pastor Burns, before I go back to Guthrie, right? You say this nation was founded on Judeo-Christian principles, going back to traditional Christian values. But I'm not American, but when I read the history of the founding of your nation, I look at Thomas Jefferson, the Bible itself, which is what we're discussing here. Thomas Jefferson had his own version of the Bible. He edited out all the parts he didn't like. I mean, this guy was as secular as they come. So isn't it a bit of a myth that the evangelicals have that, we were founded on these Christian values? The founding fathers were pretty secular.
No, not at all. And again, I cannot answer for any of the Christian brothers that who were part of the founding fathers. But what I do know is about 40 to 50 of them who helped constitute the Constitution of the United States of America were seminary graduates. These people who understood that that our faith was so important. I mean, that's one of the reasons why our nation was founded in the first place. And this misnomer of church versus church, separation from church versus state, I think is used erroneously. I mean,
but do you still support it? Do you still support the separation of church and state?
Well, I do.
Okay. I want to bring in Guthrie Fitzsimmons here. So, do you in any way agree with your brother in faith, if not in politics, that this is a good thing? It's just going back to some traditional values. It's not imposing or trying to brainwash kids in public schools. It's merely giving them the chance to have a look at the Bible.
I don't agree with Pastor Burns at all. And here's how we can look at this more broadly. Pastor Burns is conflating two ideas, being a Christian and being a Christian nationalist. And I'm a Christian, but I am not a Christian nationalist. These Bible literacy classes are being pushed by a far-right, shadowy group called Project Blitz. And they're actually writing these bills and then handing them to state legislatures with the sole purpose of advancing Christianity in the public square. And this is not the role of the government. Pastor Burns, I'm glad to hear you said you believe in the separation of church and state. The state has no place in picking and preferencing one religion over another. And that's exactly what this Project Blitz is trying to do. And it's part of a broader agenda that's anti-LGBTQ, it's anti-women's reproductive health, and it's just a complete far-right charade to call it Christian.
So
it's
Guthrie,
Christian nationalism.
Sorry to interrupt you, but when they say, Guthrie, that these offer elective classes in public schools on the Bible's literary and historical significance, I am not Christian. I have young daughters. I want them to know about the Bible's literary and historical significance. If my daughters were in public school in the US as they were for 5 years, I'd be pretty much cool with them learning about the Bible because it's part of the autobiography of, if you like, Western civilization or the country that they're living in. So what makes you so convinced, Guthrie, that there are nefarious intentions and that there might be some proselytizing going on beneath the surface?
Well, you can look up Project Blitz and research it for yourself to see the other types of bills this group is passing. But you're completely right. And I studied the Bible in my high school English class. It was part of a wide range of different literary texts that we considered as literature. But that is not what Christian nationalists want. They want to impose their beliefs and take the country back, which, of course, as you pointed out, is itself kind of crazy that we're going back to some Christian past when we've always been a country that's founded on religious freedom. But the Trump tweet, that second half of the tweet, really did expose this for what it is, which is Christian nationalism, not viewing the Bible as a work of literary something we should study as English literature. That's not what it is in their view.
Okay, Pastor Burns, let me ask you quite clearly and directly. Would you be comfortable with your Christian kids going into public school and the teacher says, this is the Talmud, it's the companion book to the Old Testament, to the Torah, it is revered by Jewish people, they use it as a form of belief, they study it, and it's a part of their religion, and we're going to look at its history. We're going to study it in depth as well for its historical significance, for its literary significance, and just to get a basic idea of what Jews believe. Would you be okay with that in an American public school?
Well, without question. I mean, the Talmud is a caricature, or it's integrated into, especially the Christian faith. I mean, again, the Torah, the first 5 books of the Old Testament. It's something that we as Christians heavily rely on and believe in, the book of Moses. And so, again, this is a nation of freedom. Freedom of religion.
But you're answering based on its proximity to Christianity. Let me then give you another example and say, okay, the Bhagavad Gita. This is revered by arguably polytheistic Hindus, right? Who arguably believe in multiple gods, not one God or not the Trinity. Would you be okay with your kids learning about that book and its historical legacy and the context within which it had emerged and evolved? Would you be okay with that in public school?
But I think at a certain age, without question. I mean, as long as, again, we're looking at it as the same thing with the Bible. I mean, we're only interjecting it as a literacy. The president was very clear. It's called the Bible literacy bill. The whole purpose of it is to interject. Again, this is nothing new in America. This is nothing new. We just moved away from it, but now we want to bring it back into forefront. And the president is just bold enough to do it. He's listening to the voices of America, and it's not a nationalist movement as my brother tries to portray it as. I'm not a nationalist. I just love Jesus.
Right.
And I just love the Bible, and I would like to see it interjected anyway to the public school system.
Do you think your
just
president's
so that
sincere?
we to take back. how it used to be. I mean, it is clear we have more violence, we have more crime, we have more children committing suicide.
Right.
We
But
have
do you,
we
sure, and
really
these are social problems, and
how
you believe that more God in the public
Let
sphere
me
answers
finish.
that problem, right? But do you believe that the president is sincere? Do you believe the president's
me
sincere?
finish.
Because there are those who say he's hardly a shining example of a practicing Christian. So might it be true, as Guthrie said, he's throwing raw meat to his evangelical base? You might not be a part of his white base, but you're part of his base. He's throwing raw meat because it's politics, because he knows this is what the people want, but he's not really sincere about this.
Well, let me first say this. I know the president personally. I know him personally. I have spent time with him personally. And yes, he is completely sincere. This is not just a political move to motivate his base for 2020. It does incite his base, but that's not why he does it, why he did it. Again, he himself knows the power of the Holy Bible personally. And I know that firsthand. Number two, again, the president is not the pastor of the United States of America. He is the president of the United States of America, which means he has to be acceptable and open to all faith in the country. It is not just Christian faith, even though this is a Christian nation. Why? Because the majority of America identify
But it's not a Christian
as
nation.
a Christian nation, just like other countries identify themselves as a Muslim nation.
But
this is a Christian, Judeo-Christian nation.
But under the Constitution, it's not a Christian nation.
No. That's not the point I make. The point is the majority of Americans in this country identify themselves as a Judeo-Christian form of Christianity. So the majority of Americans, that doesn't mean that we're ignoring or we're isolating or we are blocking other forms of faith, simply saying that the majority of Americans identify themselves as Christian. That is a fact. That is not an opinion.
Sure, it's the majority.
Fact.
Yes, the majority.
And so and we have the right to be proud a Christian nation.
Right. The majority are Christians, yes.
The majority of the ideology of America believe in Christian faith.
Okay, Pastor Mark Burns and Guthrie Graves Fitzsimmons, it's been a pleasure having you both on the Newsmakers. Thank you very much for joining us.